This podcast is brought to you by Swish LA. Come visit us at 1680 Kingston Road, Pickering, Ontario. Swish LA. Always so good for so little.
For our special topics assignment, we decided to focus on a specific Indigenous athlete and how they rose to their success. We decided to aim our attention towards the first Indigenous athlete to play on the Canadian Women's Olympic ice hockey team, that being Brigette Lacquette. We had the opportunity to catch up with the 26-year-old Manitoba native at the CWHL All-Star Game, where she captained Team Purple. We were able to ask her some questions about her pathway to her success, and as well as how she gives back to the community.
Alright, how are we doing today, guys? My name's Anthony. I'll be serving you today. And did I overhear you guys talking about Brigette Lacquette?
You did?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's great. I love Brigette Lacquette. She plays on my favorite team, the Calgary Infernos. So yeah, my name's Anthony. I'll be serving you, and I'll also be serving you some facts today on my girl Brigette Lacquette.
Sounds good, buddy. Thank you.
Buddy.
We asked Brigette Lacquette if she had any Indigenous idols growing up, and she said that she really enjoyed watching Jordan Tutu in the 2003 World Juniors.
Oh, really? Do we have any stats from this tournament?
Yeah, actually, he had a goal and an assist in 6 games and 1 silver with Team Canada. She took that inspiration and just 5 years later played for the Canadian under-18 team for back-to-back years.
How well did she do in that game?
Actually, really well. She had 3 combined goals and 15 assists in 10 games and won both a gold and a silver.
Awesome.
She said that having such a powerful connection with her role model really allowed her to push through the bumps along the road. She became successful playing Division I hockey at the University of Minnesota Duluth, and won 2 silver medals at the World Championships. Currently now, she's playing for the Calgary Inferno.
Do we know how well she did in the Olympics?
Yeah, she is a silver medal Olympian in the last Olympics.
Alright, so here we are. We have a water.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Another water.
Thank you.
One more water, and a nice Shirley Temple here. There you go. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but Brigette Lacquette started playing hockey when she was 5 years old, eh?
Really?
Wow,
Pretty
really?
impressive, right?
That young?
Oh, I have some straws here. There you go.
Actually, no, thank you. We're environmentally friendly on this podcast. We're trying to save the turtles. We don't want any straws.
Oh, yeah, for sure. What was I thinking? I'll just get these out of the way. Sorry.
Okay. So we then proceeded to ask Lacquette in our interview about any challenges she might have faced growing up. And one of them is that a lot of Indigenous communities, they face one of the 5 barriers that we mentioned in class, lack of accessibility. If you guys remember from maths class. Of course, right? So living in a small Métis community, there were no local rinks around. So that's not going to stop this amazing athlete from striving. So her father, Terrence, ended up building a rink in their yard for her and her siblings to play on.
That's awesome. Was that the biggest challenge that she had to face, or was it something else?
That was definitely not even close to being the biggest challenge she had to face. She ended up facing racism at the age of 12 years old.
Wow.
So when she went to a Winnipeg hockey tournament, she was facing remarks such as dirty Indian or telling her to go back to the reserve. And these remarks came from like the opponents, parents, and even some of her own teammates. So, however, with wanting to quit at times, like you would assume, her father did push her to get through that, and that's how she became the athlete she is today.
That's rough, but that's very cool of her to keep going.
Alright, so your program should be out in a minute or so, and I don't know if you guys knew this, but Lacquette Stick from the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics was inducted into the Diversity Hall of Fame. Something cool I thought you guys should know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Alright, I'll be right back with your programs.
It's always important for athletes to give back to the community, and this case is no different. Lacquette is a Classroom Champions mentor.
So, can you elaborate on what Classroom Champions is?
Yeah, it's an organization whose mission it is to connect underserved students with world-class mentors, support teachers, and engage families so that children can achieve successful futures. With this partnership, Lacquette travels to schools in communities where there is a lack of opportunity or lack of mentorship in the children's lives. So sport gives the opportunity to connect with communities, and Lacquette takes advantage of that. I mean, she visits these schools and brings along her Olympic medal and tells kids that it doesn't matter where you're from because you can always achieve your dreams. Give 100% in everything you do, and hard work pays off. You know, in addition to being a mentor, Lacquette also started up the Brigette Lacquette Hockey School, where she visits Indigenous communities and to share her story and teach children how to play hockey.
That's really cool. What kind of communities does she visit?
She visited Six Nations community, Cree Nation community, and then the Cross Lake community, just to name a few.
Alright, so here we go. We have the Kaiser Dark with fries and 2 quarter whites with fries. There we go. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but along with hockey, Lacquette also played golf and softball. And she's going, oh, wow, cool, right?
Cool.
Okay, I'll be right back with some sauce.
Thank you. Lastly, we asked Brigette Lacquette how she would like to shape the Indigenous community, and she said that she grew up admiring professional Canadian hockey players who are women, such as Hayley Wickenheiser and Caroline Ouellette.
Good people.
Yeah, but however, there's no Indigenous female hockey players that she looked up to. So her goal is she hopes to be an outstanding hockey player who identifies as an Indigenous player, and help increase the number of Indigenous athletes, especially female athletes.
I think she's on the right track for that too.
I think so too.
Hey guys, would you guys mind if I kind of joined in on the conversation?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so I think we should discuss further more around the stigmas of the Indigenous communities and the athletes. So with that being said, do you guys think that having Lacquette as an influential role model can boost the participation among the Indigenous communities?
Absolutely. I think that having a strong role model like Brigette Lacquette would definitely influence youth to be participating in sport more than traditionally they might, especially in a sport like hockey where it's not traditionally a sport that Indigenous people are known for. So having a strong hockey player role model for them might influence them to play a sport that otherwise they might not have. We've kind of seen that with in the NHL now with a player like Austin Matthews coming from Arizona. Like back when he was growing up watching hockey, players like Shane Doan were big influences for him, kind of growing the sport in that area. And like Keith Tkachuk in St. Louis has now started developing high-end talent coming out of the Midwest and in the South, and we see these players now coming through the draft, and at the top of the draft too, instead where it was normally dominated by Canadian.
Yeah, for sure. And like, if I can add on, like we've seen that with Lacquette. Her influence was Jordan Tutu, right? So another Indigenous athlete, and really all it takes is just one person to kind of inspire people.
Very true.
And I think in that sense, like Kadri, I think has made a huge difference for like those of like Indian descent because he's made such an impact in Toronto, and like from there, the other player.
Jujek era.
Exactly, like both of them, I think, add such huge value for those in India or Indian descent and might want to get into hockey. For them, that can be their role models.
Definitely boost participation.
For sure.
And even like Hockey on Canada, they do their Punjabi broadcasts, right? So that's true.
Yeah.
That's another big
Playing
thing.
to the demographic.
Yeah, exactly. No, 100%. And yeah, we've even seen it with African descent. So like it started with Willie O'Ree back in the '60s, and now we look and we see so many more players. So like we have PK Subban, Wayne Simmons, Jerome McGinley. He was the first African American captain in the NHL, so that was another big one, right?
Huge role model.
And so if we kind of look at hockey as a whole, looking at it from a broad view, it's easy to kind of see that the values of hockey are a lot higher than other sports, right? It's a lot more inclusive.
For sure. You see that in hockey, you see so many people coming from different nationalities, so many people from around the world. They're bringing it into China now. And like you said, we have so many players now from African descent, Indian descent, now Indigenous communities are coming in. Very, very diverse pool of athletes.
Isn't there a team in the CWHL from China?
There is actually,
There is,
yes.
right? Yeah.
I'm doing my internship with the Furies this semester, and they are now over there right now
They're
playing against China.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that's definitely growing the game and inspiring like the youth, right?
Absolutely.
Like if you think in China, hockey probably isn't like their number one go-to thing, but if they see a women's hockey team playing up there, then it's sure to inspire people. Right?
Yeah, they've been bringing lots of talent over there to play. So big now in Shenzhen, China.
They have Canadian players playing on the team, right?
Yes, and I think a few American players as well.
Okay, nice. But there are some Chinese.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Nice.
And there's actually a girl. I mean, they're trying to get into Japan as well. I think there's a girl who
really?
actually plays for the Furies, who is from Japan. I believe it's her third or fourth season now with the team.
Okay, nice. Yeah,
Very
no,
cool.
that's great.
Yeah, very diverse pool of athletes for sure.
Well, I heard talks about like the NHL possibly looking to expand into Europe. like getting a European division. So I mean, if they do that, then they maybe go to like other countries like China and grow the game, get people that would think about playing hockey in there.
Well, they've started that NHL Global Series.
Right.
So they go to countries of players on their teams, like where they're from. So they've gone to Germany, they've gone to Sweden, Finland. I believe they played against a Swiss team at one point as well. They're just bringing it everywhere. They're trying to get the NHL to expand. And of course, the CWHL is also trying to do that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so as they get more diverse players, they can go to more diverse countries, I guess, right?
But we even see like in the NHL, like more so now than before, there's players from Europe and all those countries that come overseas and come to play in North America because it's the biggest league in the world for hockey. But it still has such an influence on hockey over there, and we see it's now reaching all over the world, even into Asia.
Exactly.
See, before a lot of them would like to stay kind of where they're from when they're playing junior. Now a lot of people are coming playing like the CHL.
Yeah, lots of imports, especially from Russia and Sweden and Finland, like those
Which is good.
type of countries.
Yeah, which is good to like grow the diversity of the game, which can raise more inclusion, which is good.
Oh, well, thanks for joining us, man. This was
for
awesome.
sure.
That was awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me. Hope I didn't kind of intrude on you here.
No, it was great.
Just kind of sat
You'll get a
down.
nice tip.
Yeah, better. That's why I provide pretty good service. Yeah, so just, you know what? You guys are a couple Brigette Lacquette fans. Meals around the house.
Oh,
Don't worry
thank you.
about it.
Thanks, buddy.
Don't worry about it.